Hey there, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started just to kind of keep on time here. Let's see here. All right, I muted everybody so that we don't have any background noise, but if you have something to say, please come off mute. You can interrupt me just so we can kind of keep the conversation going. I am going to ask some questions, so feel free to chime in with answers. I'll be trying to watch the chat too. All right, I put it up on the side. So I'll be trying to watch the chat too, just to kind of make sure I catch everything. So we are on, this is the power of a positive team, right? John Gordon. And we're on chapter 4 is what we're doing today, chapter 4. All right, so it's positive teams work together with optimism, positivity, and belief. All right, a team that believes together achieves together. All right. As people come on, I'm going to be muting you just to kind of keep the recording clear. But if you, like I said, please unmute yourself or talk in the chat and I'll keep an eye on it if you have anything that you want to add. I really enjoyed this chapter. I don't know about you guys, if you got a chance to read this chapter before our call, but there were lots of great things I loved about this chapter, just kind of about staying positive, things that you can do to kind of like keep yourself in that positive place. It's always good to kind of figure out what works for you so that you can continue to do that whenever, because we all have those negative thoughts that kind of drip in. People think that if you're a positive person that you just don't have those thoughts. A positive person has them just as much as the negative person. It's just a lot of times a positive person has ways to cope with those thoughts and ways to shut them down, turn them around, do all that kind of good stuff. And a negative person is just simply lacking that knowledge or skills to be able to turn it around. But it's also a choice, because you can have those skills and choose to just sit in it, choose to just kind of be there in that negative moment and let it take you further than it needs to. All right. And yeah, Jeff is like, it's so a choice. It really, truly is. I mean, I have met people in the worst of circumstances that are still able to have a positive outlook on what's going on. Are they that way 100% of the time? Absolutely. I can guarantee not. Okay. And I think I told this story before when my husband and I were kind of going through our toughest times financially. And one of the things we had to do for our bankruptcy was get our house appraised. So the appraiser came to the house and I was expecting her. So I had the front door open. And so she came to the house and she walks in. I'm like, hi, come in, come in. I'm like, can I get you anything? And she's like, no, I'm good. And so it took her a while. She was walking around the house for a while, just kind of checking everything out, walking around the outside, the inside, all that kind of good stuff. And so occasionally I would just strike up, if she was kind of in my space where I was with the kids, I'd strike up a conversation with her. And it was funny. So at the end, she kind of sat me down and went through things with me. And I was just like, sit down, can I get you something? And so we sat there talking. And finally, at the end of the conversation, she said, I do a lot of these. I do a lot of these where I go to appraise the house and she goes, and I know what your circumstance is. I know what you're going up against here. She said, and I have to be honest. She said, if I didn't know that before I walked in the door, I never would have known that from you and the energy in your house. She said, because, usually when I walk into a situation like this, one, they don't want me there. And two, they're mad. They're mad about the situation they're in. They're mad that I'm there as the next step in the process. And she said, and I can feel it. I can feel the energy in the house. I can feel the negative, the sort of downtrodden sort of feeling in the house. And I was like, oh yeah, I said, I totally get that. I said, but with small kids, I said, I just can't have that energy floating around my house, making things 10 times worse than they need to be. They're bad enough, and it was just, but that is kind of the power that you have, regardless of the circumstances that you're in right now, whether it's health, financial, any of that type of stuff, relationship, any of those sort of things going on, you can choose every day how you want to be outwardly. right? As Tupperware people, we go in and out of a lot of houses, and there were times I would go into houses, or there have been times that I've gone into houses and you can feel the energy in the house and you don't know what's going on in that house, but you know it's not good, right? And then other times you go into a house and it just feels good, like the vibe of the house is so good, the people, everything, and it all stems from whoever it is that's living in that house. And so when you think about it, that's the power that we have in the energy that we put out there. And so it's really important to manage that, not only for the people around us, but for ourselves. I mean, like, we can't escape our energy, right? We're kind of stuck there. Other people, they can leave our space and they can get out of it if it's not a good vibe, right? But we can't. So why not make the choice to make your personal energy and environment as amazing as possible and as uplifting as possible, because you're the one marinating in it 24/7, okay? So definitely make that choice. And like I said, today in this chapter, you're gonna learn some sort of like coping mechanisms to help you kind of turn that around, right? And I might, after we kind of go through it, there's some that kind of pop in my head, because I have lots of different coping mechanisms, because some days some work better than others, and it's good to just kind of mix it up, right? So as your team works towards a shared vision with a greater purpose, you will face all sorts of challenges and adversity. And that's just life, whether you're working in your business or you're working just your day-to-day. There's, life changes every 90 days, right? Isn't that what they say? Something like that, right? Every 90 days, there's some sort of shift and a change in your life, whether it's a huge change or if it's something small, whether it's something to your daily grind or whatever. Too often, I see teams give up because of the struggle, the circumstance, the frustration, the fear, the negativity, the rejection, and the adversity. They give up because the obstacle seems more powerful than them, and they don't have the faith to keep moving forward. But you don't have to give up. You don't have to let fear win. You can know that all things are possible to a team that believes. You can trust that your obstacles are no match for your team that has faith, love, and hope. You can keep your shared vision and purpose alive and work with optimism. That, all right. Positivity and belief to create it. And that's so unbelievably true. And, in the times that we've gone through, me personally in my life, the first time we went through all of our adversities, God was not centered in my life. He was in my life, but he wasn't centered in my life. And the other times that we've gone through those, and my husband would say the exact same thing, is that the other times we've gone through it with God centered, that faith was so powerful. It made all of the adversities that we were facing so much easier to handle, because we truly knew that God wasn't going to let us down. He never does. He's never let us fall. He always is there to help us, lift us up, and pull us through, even if it doesn't look like we want it to look, right? He still is there and pulls us through. And that is the faith that we're talking about, whatever that looks like to you. Okay, that's the kind of faith that we're talking about, knowing that he's there to pull us through, or just knowing that you can take those steps forward and get yourself out of whatever situation that you're in, or whatever negativity is kind of invading your space, your head, all of that. There is a way to pull through that. Gina says, amen, sister. Absolutely. All right, so you want to stay positive together. A lot of teams start out positive. Okay, think about, we're coming off of the beginning of the year, right? It's very easy to be positive at the beginning of the year. Everybody's got a clean slate. All our numbers are zero. We're all on the same level, right? And so it's very easy to be positive in the beginning of the year, whether you have a sales goal, a weight loss goal, a life goal, a financial goal, whatever those goals are. You're like, this is my year. It's happening. 2020, it is on, right? And you're just like so excited, right? But you have to kind of keep going forward, because as time goes on, challenges emerge and the team loses its positive energy and attitude. I found great teams not only are positive in the beginning, but throughout the journey. And later in this chapter, we kind of talk a little bit more about that. And he gives a lot of sports references because that's his wheelhouse, right? And so I try to kind of skim over those because I don't want anybody to like tune out just because we're talking sports. But there are a couple in this chapter that are just so, they're just such a great example of pulling through that, even though it's not the beginning, right? A team stays positive together. A team that stays positive together succeeds together. And doesn't that feel amazing? I remember when Pam and Jim became executive directors, right? That was a goal as a team we had been working for forever. And even though it was their recognition, I know the people that were there, we felt like it was us up on the stage. Like we were there with tears in our eyes, right on the edge of the stage, you know, looking up at Pam and Jim, and we felt just as accomplished as they felt accomplished. You know, and that is what we're going for. That is the vibe that we want here at Champion all the time, right? Is that there we goals, right? You know, the company sales goal, the company recruiting goal, if you're an organization leader, the organizational goals, the team goals, the unit goals, they're a we goal, you know. And so it's so important to just kind of take a step back. It's very humbling, you know, as a leader. It's very humbling to think about the efforts it takes from everyone to accomplish these things. So when Champion is getting recognized for top 5, top 3, top whatever, right? That is us. That is all of us. And Pam and Jim always do a phenomenal job of making sure we all understand that, you know. And if you don't understand that, I'm here to tell you right now, it is a we goal, right? And that's so amazing to be a part of something bigger, right? To be a part of something bigger when it comes to those goals. I remember the satisfaction I felt probably maybe even after my first full year in the business, thinking about like, I contributed numbers to that, you know. And when Pam did the end of the year recognition, I saw my team sales and I was just like, my team, the people that I am leading are responsible for X amount of the sales of the company. That's huge. And it made me very proud to be a part of that. So, so it's really important to just kind of like recognize that. And sometimes that's the fuel you need on the days you don't feel like it, the days you don't feel good, the days when the good weather outside is calling your name away from your business, or any of those sort of things. You know, sometimes it's that bigger picture that kind of helps carry us through. And I know that John Gordon talks about the telescope and the microscope, and the telescope is the big goals and the microscope is the day-to-day activities that get us to that big goal. And it's important to be looking at both, right? And so that's kind of like the power that we have as a team, and staying positive and keeping moving forward. It sounds like a cliche, but it's so often the key to making your vision a reality is just to stay positive. Many teams don't, and they sabotage themselves. But teams that simply stay positive one day at a time end up accomplishing a lot more over time. And I remember one of my very first jobs, well, it was like my third job, I guess, technically. I worked at a clothing store, and I remember there was a girl, and she'd worked at the clothing store with me. We were the same age, and she was like an assistant manager or something. And she got a job at another store in the mall that was opening. And so she was so excited about this other job. So she already had one foot out the door in the job that we worked together. And it was so difficult to work with her those last couple days because she was so negative about our store and how this new store is going to be so much better and everything's going to be so much better when she's at this new store. And I just remember, like, at the time I didn't know anything about, you know, how much that kind of talk can really get in your head and affect you, but it did. It affected me. Then I found myself like do I want to work here? And it was honestly, it was like another month after that. And my manager pulled me aside and was like, do you want to work here? Because when I say somebody can go home early, you're like out the door in a flash. And it leads me to believe that you don't want to be here. And she's like, when I say this, you know, you kind of react in this way. And it leads me to believe that you don't want to be here. Because if you don't want to be here, that's okay. Because there are lots of girls that would love to have this job. And so in the small town that I was in, there weren't a lot of like cool jobs for teenage girls. And I worked at one of the coolest stores in the mall. And so, you know, one of the only junior stores in the mall. And so, yeah, people wanted that job. And so I remembered that, and it always stuck with me because I was like, oh my gosh, it's from her. It's from this other girl. She had one foot out the door, and it made me start second guessing what my decisions were in being at that store. And that's the same thing that can happen with us in Tupperware, is that, you know, and I kind of joke and I say, you know, when somebody's been in a job too long and they kind of need to leave, but they haven't realized it yet, but everybody around them realizes it, you know, and that's the kind of impact that we can have at Rally. Like when we're all together, we don't want to be there. We're sending off that vibe. Hey, we don't want to be here. And suddenly a couple other people are like, yeah, I don't want to be here either. And guess what? Next week, they're not as invested as we are, so they don't show up. And then we're like, hey, whatever happened to so-and-so? She used to come to these meetings all the time, you know? And sometimes it's somebody else's negative vibe that she kind of caught. It's kind of like, you know, catching the flu, right? If you don't want flu, don't hang around with people with the flu. You know, it's the same thing with your positivity. All right. So the greatest teams don't, excuse me, the greatest teams don't just have great coaches, great managers, great principals, or great leaders at the helm. They have great leaders within the team who inspire the team to believe in each other. It's powerful when you believe in your leader, but to be a great team, I believe it's even more powerful to believe in each other. If you want to accomplish great things together, you must believe together. And again, that's the power that we have. Yes, Pam is a great leader. Yes, we have great directors at Champion. However, those people sitting in the seats that aren't necessarily training have just as big an impact with their positivity or their negativity than the people on stage. You know, and we have to recognize that power we have within ourselves to help build each other. You know, when we in the Fall Fest, when we do that attitude of gratitude and stuff, I love that because that is somebody in the seats recognizing a lot of times somebody else in the seats that's like, this person always is at Rally when I'm there, and I always sit beside her, and she lifts me up, and she, you know, points things out that I don't see. She does these things, you know, she makes me feel at home when I'm there. She's nice to my guests. She's, you know, that's the everyday person. That's who all of us are, you know, and who all of us have the capability to be. No one creates success alone. We all need a positive team to push and encourage us. We all need encouragement from our team. As a team, make sure you encourage each other, cheer each other on, support each other. When you encourage each other, you make one another stronger and you make the team stronger. So I have a question. So any of you can come off mute and answer this or type it in the chat, all right? But I want a little bit of interaction here. All right, so when have you witnessed that? When have you witnessed people cheering each other on and supporting each other and encouraging each other? Maybe it's something small that somebody said to you. Maybe it's on a bigger scale, and it was maybe a night when Pam was like on fire and she was, you know, telling, you know, a story of her past. So when have any of you witnessed this? Nothing?
Hey, Ellen, it's Mel.
Hi, Mel.
Hey, I just wanted to say, you guys are probably getting tired of hearing me saying this, but when no one we came in Champion from the side, we didn't like come from the beginning and all the way up. But we came in from the side, and so it's like a unique perspective on Champion that I can say. And the positivity, I mean, you really can feel it when you walk in that room. We were apprehensive. We hadn't had a business leader for about 6 weeks, and we were kind of floating out there in Tupperware land. And we came into Champion not knowing, are we going to be accepted? Are we good enough? We had all these crazy notions. And as soon as we came in, we immediately felt like, we were accepted, that everyone welcomed us. It was truly a positive experience. And I think a lot of times people choose to be that way. It helps your psyche, as well as the people around you. And I think Champion has that down pat.
Awesome. You do have a unique perspective, and I welcome you to share that. Because I don't share that perspective. And so I love to hear that from you, especially since you kind of knew the business. To be able to walk in and feel that is huge, I think. So
Right.
yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, so Gina said Lydia was very sweet to her and helped her when she first came back to Tupperware. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about, these little things. Jeff says, easy answer, Jubilee. When you see all the people get wrapped up in the energy and positivity, for instance, when Loretta's moment on stage, we all felt that. Yes, absolutely. That's a perfect example, Jeff, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. And of course, like I mentioned at Fall Fest, that attitude of gratitude, that is definitely, you witness, you witness that, you witness the impact that somebody can have. And it's right there on display for everyone, absolutely. And Barbara Ann says, it happens so often at our weekly meetings. It really does. I mean, it really truly does. We're very fortunate in that we do have those weekly meetings. Even if you can't be there in person, everybody has a choice as to whether or not they want to watch it streaming. And there are a lot of people that do. And I'm glad that they make that choice just to be a part of it, and also it kind of, I think, helps them visualize themselves being there. And hopefully that's a goal of theirs someday, to come to a Spring Fest, Fall Fest. We have a couple people that come from far distances. Her name is escaping me right now, but somebody on Manel's team comes to all of our Spring Fest and Fall Fest. And she moved away and she comes back for them. And then Stacy Thorne, I know on Jessica's team, she comes for that. And I think one of the first times we met Stacy was at a Jubilee. So that in itself is pretty cool, and so being able to be present on that and make it a goal, to just kind of come up and experience that in person. Gina says, Champion, Pam has opened up our business to other leaders to learn from us, and they love Champion because of that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. And Pam is always saying she can't outgive God. And so that's why she truly, she helps everybody. She helps, I don't really know if Pam has enemies, but when you're on top, it's an easy target. So sometimes people get a misconception and they think that she might be an enemy, but she's really not. I mean, honestly, truly. And I know I'm biased, but if anybody takes the time to get to know her, her heart is so genuine and she gives with both hands. I mean, truly, truly she does. And so, yeah, and I feel like the people in our region see that now. I'm not sure if they knew what to think of us when we first came to this region, but because Pam is so giving and is like, I'm an open book, sit down, pick my brain, talk to me. I will tell you my tricks. You can join my team page. You can do this. You can witness it. You can come to our rally. You can do this, and so she's so good about all of that. All right, so feed the positive dog. Each individual contributes to the collective optimism, belief, and positivity of a team. The fact is, if you don't have it, you can't share it. To be a positive team, all of your team members must cultivate optimism within themselves and share it with each other. And he references his book, The Positive Dog, which I haven't read yet. And he says, we have a negative dog and a positive dog. and they fight all the time. But the one who wins the fight is the one you feed the most. So feed the positive dog. And that makes complete sense to me. You know, as far, you know, if you know, what you give your attention grows, right? We know that in Tupperware. If you ignore your business, it will go away. If you ignore your team, it will go away. If you give that your attention, if you give certain aspects of your business your attention, it grows. It's just a matter of doing it consistently and long enough to see that growth and experience that. We all have a positive versus negative battle going on each day. Every moment and every situation presents an opportunity for you, for your team to see and experience the positive or the negative. Each day, you can feed the positive dog or the negative dog inside yourselves, and whichever one you feed grows. As a team, you want to feed the positive dog. Feed yourselves, feed each other. The more you feed the positive dog, the more it grows, and the more the negative dog becomes smaller and weaker. And that's true too. It's funny because, okay, so my husband and I, we owned a coffee shop, and we employed teenage girls. We had a couple boys throughout the years, but mostly it was teenage girls. And so occasionally we would have a hire that would be somebody that was kind of drama, and they were trying to bring drama into the mix. We don't do drama. We've never done drama. Eric and I, you know, you can be in dramatic situations and not respond to it dramatically. And we certainly were in lots of dramatic situations, and we always made a choice to not feed that energy, feed that drama, right? And so we always made a choice to be calm in those situations, even when it was the scariest and worst. You know, we always made a choice to be calm and to try our best to stay the course, right? And so occasionally we would hire somebody, and they would come in, they'd be drama, and they'd be trying to stir up drama. Drama, if you do not play into the drama, and we see it in Tupperware too, there'll be somebody that comes in trying to stir the pot a little bit. If you do not feed that, if you don't give them what they want, which is drama, it goes away. Either they're like, oh, that's not going to work here, and they either leave. Most time they leave because they're looking for drama, right? And other times they conform, like they actually, in a good way. I conform as such a bad rap of a word, but they kind of come back around, you know, and they're just kind of like, oh, this is kind of better than the drama. Like, maybe I do want to be like this. Jeff says, starve the drama. It will die or leave looking for that negative food. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's so important. All right. So here are some ideas. So here in the next couple, oh, did somebody have something to say? I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay. All right. So over the next couple of little points, we're going to talk about ways for you to, this was a really long chapter, so I'm going to try and zoom through it. We'll talk about ways that you can sidestep the negativity and stay on the positive course, right? Talk to yourself. Talk to yourself. This is a good thing, talking to yourself, which is good because I talk to myself a lot. All right. So when I think of feeding the positive dog, I think of Dr. Gills, James Gills, who accomplished the remarkable feat of doing a double triathlon. When asked how he did it, he gave the best advice I've ever heard. He said, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself, right? I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because when you're listening to yourself, yourself is saying, you can't do that. That number is impossible. You've never hit that number before. Why would you hit it now with a smaller team? You know, that's what but talk to yourself instead and be like, I can do this. Other people are doing it. Why not me? Right? It's so important to do that. He says, if I listen to myself, I hear all the reasons why I should give up. I hear that I am too tired, too old, too weak to make it. But if I talk to myself, I can give myself the encouragement and the words I need to hear to keep running and finish the race. Too often we listen to ourselves and hear all the complaints, self-doubt, fear, and negativity that lead to unhappiness, failure, and unfulfilled goals. But just because you have negative thoughts doesn't mean you have to believe it. And he also talked about memorizing scripture that he would kind of pull out when he needed a boost. And it's funny, when I read that, I thought about my daughter. She was running a race and she just like killed this race, because there are days you can definitely see she's feeling it and days that you can't. If you watch, you know, especially your kids, you know them so well. And when you watch them in an athletic situation, you can tell like if they're having a day that they're just feeling it. So I could tell she was feeling it. So afterwards I was like, hey, so what was, you know, what was going on today? Like, where's your head at? Like, because I want to examine it so she can recognize it too, so she can repeat it. And she goes, you know what, Mom? I was running and I just kept hearing a song and I just kept playing the song over and over in my head. I said, really? I said, tell me, what was the song? And it was You Are Loved. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I love that. I'm getting tears in my eyes right now thinking about it. And another time she's talked about other songs that she's played in her head that are like Christian songs that is truly about like God giving you the power to be able to do these things. And I'm just like, wow. I'm like, that is so smart at such a young age, you know? And I was like, and that's the power of music can do that for you. Or if you're a scripture person, you know, if you memorize scripture, doing that, you know, whatever it is that does that for you, or even just affirmations. All right. So don't be freaked out because I'm talking about God here. Just even affirmations or a song that just makes you feel good, like the song Happy, right? You know, whatever, you know, whatever. All right. So how many of your negative thoughts come from fear? And the truth is that fear is a liar. We can speak the truth to lies and fuel it up with words, thoughts, phrases, and beliefs that give us the strength and power to overcome our challenges and create an extraordinary life or team. All right. How to replace the have to with get tos. And Pam talks about this, right? So for all of us that are like, oh, it's Tuesday and the weather's crappy, or the weather's so beautiful and I don't want to go to rally, I want you to think about Mel, okay? She's probably off the phone by now. She said she had to leave at 10. I want you to think about Mel. You know, she wishes that she had to go to rally every single week because she wishes she was closer to be able to get to go to rally every single week, right? Think about all those people on Zoom that are far enough away that they can't come to rally every week. Think about somebody who can't drive, like Barbara Ann. She has to wait for somebody to take her to rally, right? You know, I mean, think about things like that. Somebody who's in the hospital, somebody who you know, is sick and can't make it to rally, right? It's amazing when you have, it's such a word game in your head, just kind of shifting those words around and just recognizing that. But it works when you change the verbiage in your head, the way you speak to yourself, it works tremendously. So instead of talking about have to, talk about get to, you know. And even like, oh, I gotta go cook dinner. I get to cook dinner. I get to cook dinner because I have food to put on my table. I have electricity. I have gas. I have a stove that works. I have a microwave that works. I have a family to cook for, you know. And it just, that's huge. And when you start thinking about that and you think about the gratitude, it just shifts everything. It shifts everything. All right, so make the next opportunity great. They talk about baseball being a game of failure because even a Hall of Fame player will fail to hit 2 out of 3 times, and most players will fail to get the hit 3 out of 4 times. A pitcher will give up hits and home runs, and fielders will make errors. He says, I don't believe baseball is a game of failure. I believe it's a game of opportunity. No matter what happened on the last play, pitch, or at bat, you get the opportunity to make the next one great. It's the same way in life. Anyone pursuing anything worthwhile will fail and fail often. I've been on many teams that have failed, but in looking back, I realized we weren't failing, we were growing. We weren't failing, we were becoming. I've learned that you can dwell on the past or look forward to the next opportunity. So think about that in our business. How many no's have you gotten in the lifetime of your business? I've gotten thousands, probably, truly, you know. And I could either let that get to me or I could keep going and keep finding the next yes. It just takes one. I'm looking for one. I'm looking for that one. I'm looking for that one person that's already on my team that really decides to turn it up a notch. I'm looking for that one person out there who is sitting there wondering how in the world they are going to make the ends meet at the end of this month with their bills. I'm looking for that one person who wants to make an impact on the future generations of their family by making them financially stable, by having their kids watch them get up, change their life, do something different to make a difference for their family, right? What an impact that has when your kids see you being like, you know what? This isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. This job isn't good enough. This life isn't good enough. This neighborhood isn't good enough. We deserve better, and I'm going to go get it for us, right? Wow, what kind of an impact does that have on a child and the way that they look at their life when they're going forward and when they're unhappy in a job in the future, unhappy in a relationship, unhappy in any of those sort of things? And they're like, you know what? My mom, my dad, they were like, this isn't good enough. And they went out and they reinvented themselves to make it enough for my family. I can do that too. I'm from that same bloodline. I'm that same person. I can do that. They can do it. I've got it in me to do it because they made me. They raised me, right? That's the kind of power you're looking for. So that I know every day I think to myself, I'm looking for the one. I just need the one. I just need that one, right? And so, so LOSS. So the acronym of LOSS is learning, opportunity, stay strong, right? And I love this. There was a British study of a Fortune 500 or 500 fortunate people, Fortune 500 people who seem to have it all. When the researchers studied these charmed people, they were surprised to find out that every one of them had experienced misfortune in their lives. They all turned their misfortune into fortune. In the midst of their struggle, they looked for and found an opportunity. We hear those stories in Tupperware all the time. As a team, you must remember the events that are going to happen. Challenges are going to come your way. Look for the opportunity and the good that is coming your way and ask, how can we learn from this? How can we grow from this? What can we do now? What actions will we take? Stay strong together, and you will turn your challenges into even greater opportunities and results. All right. Let's see here. Oh, The Shark and the Goldfish. I liked that. Okay, he said there's a book called The Shark and the Goldfish. He shares how the waves of change are always coming your way, and when the waves hit, you have a choice as a team. You can resist the change, or you can ride the wave to a successful future. And that's so important to just kind of remember that, remember that changes happen. And you can sit there and you can say, I don't like those changes. They're not working for me. Or you can get on board with it and ride it out, right? There's a great book, Who Moved My Cheese? It's a great book. It's by like the Minute Manager series. I read it back when I worked in restaurants, and it was just kind of about, about if you're so in business, so in Tupperware, say I was doing parties a certain way and suddenly it stopped working and it was working less and working less. So before I run out of parties, I go in search of a new way to do parties so that I can keep going, right? But some people, they just watch it and write it down, and they're just like, oh, we'll come back around. Oh, it'll come back around. But it's getting less and less and less. And then they're like, well, I don't have any parties. Everybody just stopped taking parties with me. And I don't have any parties now. So I guess I'm out of business. Whereas, a savvy business person would recognize like the downturn and be like, okay, let's shift. Let's shift to something else. Let's go find where the people are at and where I can talk to them about this business. All right, think like rookies. I loved this. All right, so too many teams have been infected by what I call the curse of experience. This is where they long for the good old days. Complain about the way things are and unwilling to change, right? They have allowed their past experience, good or bad, to affect their present and their future. We hear that a lot in Tupperware. Tupperware's been around a long time, and so sometimes you have somebody that used to be in the business, they come back to the business, and they're just kind of like, oh, this isn't how it used to be. That's okay for them to say this isn't how it used to be, but then They go out and they figure out the way it is now. That's what a successful person does. That's what Gina has done, honestly. You know, Gina was in the business a while ago and had such huge success. And when she came back, she was kind of like, it's not quite the same. So what has she done? She's diversified herself. She's working her business in a different way than she has before. And that's huge. That is absolutely what leads to growth. And that's a phenomenal leader to be able to recognize that. And instead of dwelling on the fact, well, this doesn't work anymore and I'm not going to be able to do this, she's focusing on new ways to recreate, reinvent herself, the wheel, whatever it is, her business, and do it, taking those steps towards that. There's lots of people that do not take that initiative, and they just kind of are like, they just complain, and they complain their way right out the door because they're just like, oh, well, I remember when parties came so easily, and now there's all these direct sales companies. Well, people are having a go of it. They're making success with it. So you can either stop complaining and do something about it, or work your way out the door, which is what they have a tendency to do, but not Gina. That's not what she did at all. So that's significant. Kudos to you, Gina, big time. And regardless of how much experience you or your team have, I want to encourage you to let your experience be a blessing, not a curse. Let your experience provide you with expertise, and let your rookie mindset fuel you with optimism and passion. Think like a rookie, forget the past, and create your good old days right now. Absolutely, I completely agree with that. I used to joke that when I first started, I was like ignorance on fire because I didn't really know all the programs. I didn't really know anything. I just did literally what Pam told me to do. And a lot of times I didn't even know why she was telling me to do it. I figured it out later, right? And that's kind of what she was banking on, that I was just going to figure it out later, you know, and just let me get this foundation, and then you can figure out all the details later. And that's exactly what I did, you know, and that's thinking like a rookie. Be like, you know what, I need to do this. I got to put my head down, do the work, and I'll figure it all out later. I'll figure out what this looks like later. And it talks about Murphy's Law, and that when you start, and everybody knows Murphy's Law, right? Whatever bad's going to happen is going to happen. When you expect to see Murphy, and when you do, you'll have an even greater expectation that you'll defeat him. So just kind of even recognizing that Murphy's Law kind of exists, right? And just being like, hey, I know this is coming, so I'm going to prepare myself now and be ready for it, right? So that you can, sometimes you can see that kind of stuff out in the distance. You're like, I don't like how that's looking. Maybe I can make some adjustments now. And I've been able to do that in my business. I did that with a leader that I didn't like kind of the direction that things were going. And I was able to step in and make some shifts so that way it wasn't, it didn't end up happening quite the way that I kind of could see it coming down the road. And so sometimes there are things like that you can do. So when adversity hits, don't run from it. Don't be scared of it. Face it, take it head on, and keep moving forward. Murphy is tough, but you're tougher, right? All right, so this was interesting, the inside out. It says, remember that it's never about the circumstance. It's not the challenge, change, economy, adversity, or setback you and your team are facing. It's always your state of mind and your thinking that produces how you feel and respond. And it talks about, you know, you creating that instead of letting things happen to you, that you're making those things happen. So instead of just kind of letting outside influences influence your thoughts and the way that you feel, make the way your thoughts and the way you feel influence outside things, right? So don't look at the problems in the world and allow them to get you down. Look inside yourself and look at your team and decide to change in the world, and decide to change the world inside out. All right. Distort reality. This was a good one. As a positive team, you really do have the power to distort reality. We often think that reality is objective, but when you understand how positive teams have changed the world throughout history, it becomes clear that a team can define reality and distort it in a positive way. Think about rose-colored glasses, right? Jim, I've heard him many times laugh about Pam and her Pollyanna world and her rose-colored glasses and things like that. But you know what? There's a reason why sometimes, you know, in the past we've been able to do, and in the future we're able to do things that, you know, you're kind of look back later, you're like, how do we even do that? You know why? Because of that positive outlook, because of just kind of like, you know what, I don't know how that's actually going to happen, but that's our goal and we're going for it, right? When you look at the numbers and the projections and all that stuff, you're like, it doesn't make sense how we could possibly hit that goal, and then you end up hitting it because of that outlook and that positivity, right? What could your team achieve if you shared your optimism and belief with each other and distorted reality, right? I loved that. All right, faith or fear? Fear or faith? The ultimate battle we face every day is the battle between faith and fear. As a team, you must realize that your members are facing this battle daily. They're filled with fear, doubt, and uncertainty, and it's your job to inspire them with faith. Remember, each other remind each other that fear and faith have one thing in common. They both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. I remember the first time I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true, right? Fear believes in a negative future and faith believes in a positive future. If neither has happened yet, why wouldn't you choose to believe in a positive future? Why wouldn't we choose to believe our best days are ahead of us instead of behind us? Tell your team that if you all believe that your best days are behind you, that's the truth. If you all believe your best days are ahead of you, then that's the truth. Belief matters. So have faith in the future, work hard, and make it happen. All right. Let's see here. All right. Don't stop believing. You and your team will face a lot of adversity, resistance, and negativity, but always remember that your certainty and optimism, belief and faith must be greater than all the negative fear and doubt. Share your belief together as a team. Talk about it openly. Discuss your challenges and why you can overcome them, and confront the daunting tasks before you. Don't ignore them. Face them not with fear, but with faith. Yes, you will face the giants in your life that seem more powerful than you, but know and trust that they are no match for a team that refuses to give up. No matter what happens, don't stop believing. And okay, so the best is yet to come. I thought this was really good. And this is a couple sports references. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we actually made it. I was questioning about halfway through if we're going to make it through this chapter. Because I highlighted a lot. That's the problem with his books. They are so, like, he doesn't have a lot of fluff in there. Whereas, like, a lot of times when you read a book, there's a lot of fluff. So it's easy to highlight, like, key points. There are times, let me show you. Yeah, look at this. I, like, highlighted practically the whole thing. A lot of good points. All right. Okay, so the best is yet to come. Now, this is some sporting references, but I couldn't get away from them, and they're so good. Like, they're so good. Yeah. And they're not even about Clemson. Ha! I'm a Clemson fan. So, so the one was about the Heat, right? The basketball team down in Florida that LeBron used to be on, right? The Heat didn't have a team of superstar players, but they had players who believed in each other. They had a team that refused to let the negativity sabotage them. And they had a team that, despite their midseason record, believed the best was yet to come. And again, that goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. It's easy to be optimistic at the beginning of a season, at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of, and be like, we're going to do this. This is our year. We're going to kill it. We're going to do this, right? But it's not as easy to kind of keep that going. And so even just kind of looking halfway through the year and being like, we're down. So are we going to, stay on this trend, or are we the best is yet to come, and it's just important to kind of realize how powerful your thoughts are in those moments and be able to make those decisions. Great teams don't give up don't give into the situation. They don't give up when things look bleak. They overcome the negativity with positivity. Belief in optimism in order to be their best and bring out their best in others. A team that is positive and strong on the inside will overcome the negative forces they experience on the outside. This brings us to an important point. Since a team will have to overcome the negativity, they can't allow negativity from within to weaken them. A positive team can withstand the negative forces coming at them, but they will crumble if negativity comes from within. Positive teams know and believe that outside forces cannot truly defeat them. They can only defeat themselves. For a team to overcome the negative, it's essential to stay positive. We have discussed many ways to feed the positive, but now let's get real and talk about how to confront the transformation and remove the negativity that sabotages far too many teams. And that's what we're going to talk about in chapter 5. If you guys want to come off mute and just kind of share some of your ahas, your thoughts on this chapter, maybe examples of times that you've experienced some of these things in your business or life, you can put it in the chat too. I'll be looking at that. Like I said in the beginning, I just loved this chapter. I mean, I've said that about all the chapters though. But it just, you know, it's so important to have that positive outlook, and to be that positive person even in your circle of influence. And in Tupperware, I kind of expect people to see me in that positive light because I'm working, and when I'm working, I'm trying my best to be as positive as I possibly can. But I remember the first time somebody said to me outside of Tupperware, like, "Oh, Ellen, you're such a positive person. I knew you were the person I wanted to talk to about this because I knew that you would have a positive outlook on it." And I was like, "Oh, you see that?" Like, I was so excited because that's what I strive for. I want people to see it. But I don't go around saying, "Well, I'm a positive person, so I'm going to think this." I just do it, and that's kind of, I would rather have people see it through my actions than hear it through my words, and so yeah, so I think the power of positivity is so significant. It's been so significant in my life and the success that I've had, but also just the success that I've had every day, and just in that battle between negative and positive. All right, anybody have any ahas about anything? Things that they loved? You guys are so quiet. This book not just such a great, it's so easy to read. All right. Jeff, you read chapter 3 instead of 4. That's okay. Gina loved it all. We miss you, Gina. All right, you'll catch up for next week. Even though chapter 4 was a longer chapter, it's still like I just kind of blew through it. It's such an easy read. Like he writes in such a way that it's easy reading. And even on Audible, because I have the book on Audible too, so I can just kind of listen to it, just to kind of. I find that I learn and I learn both through audio as well as reading. In a visual, but that's sort of my combo, is to listen. It actually helps me if I listen and I have the book and I'm listening as I'm going through. That's the best way for me to learn. It's just not always that handy to be able to do that. So I do have it on Audible too, and it's a short book on Audible, like, because it doesn't take long at all. I also listen to it in like hyper speed. So I can listen to it super fast. So, all right. Oh, Lydia?
Yes, it is an amazing book, and it's wonderful. I love being able to be part of the book club, to actually hear it talked about, and it just, things sink in a little bit better, I think, or something, because sometimes when we kind of just read a book, it's like we don't stop and really think about what we're reading. But the positivity from Champion is so important, and it's such a big help, because we have all been through some really low times, and it's the hanging around the positive people there that really gets you through.
It does. It absolutely does. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And sometimes when I just read the book, I get lost in my thoughts too. And then I find myself going, and I'm like, what did I just read? Like,
Uh-huh.
like I can't concentrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does. It helps to kind of talk about it. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I mean, I think the positivity at Champion is kind of what has gotten all of us through the last couple years, because
Yes.
all of us, I'm not sure there's a single director at Champion that hasn't had some pretty big life things happen in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
So yeah, that positivity just kind of banding together in that has been significant, I think, for all of us. We're our own support group.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that rally is so important for us every week. I mean,
Mhm.
it really is. If somebody told me years and years and years ago when I was in the first time, and I know I've said this before, but I'll always go back to it. If you've had a bad week, you need rally. And if you've had a great week, rally needs you. So either way, you need to be there.
Right.
And it's true. Very true.
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, still today, absolutely. That's completely
Mhm.
true. I mean, there are definitely times I walk in the door and I'm like, thank goodness I'm here. Like, I need this. I need to get out of my own head. I need to listen to what Pam has to say. I need to just drink it in, and then there are other times that, I hopefully am that person for other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
Angela, she's so sweet. It has changed my whole world. Gina says, thank you for the session. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me this morning. This was fun. And I'll see some of you tonight in Columbus, and then I will see some of you tomorrow at Raleigh.
All right. Thank you, Ellen.
All right. Bye.